This is Comic Picks by the Glick.
Hey, I'm your host, Jason Glick.
Hey, Jason Glick. What's going on? What do you got for on tap for us tonight?
Hey, John. So basically, it's like we're coming back to that inexhaustible well of comics topics that is the X-Men franchise. Because God knows, like I love X-Men. It's like I've been reading them for like decades now. It's like I am thoroughly invested in their ongoing storyline. And in fact, like as long time readers will know, it's like I really liked what Jonathan Hickman did with his reinvention of the it's like other franchise for his tenure on the series, starting with House of X and Powers of X, or Powers of 10 if you want to be specific about it. But the thing is, like all good things must come to an end, and well, Hickman is wrapping up his run. Well, a little bit earlier than he had initially planned, and also to help me talk about this stuff. Well, it's like I've invited my buddy Rob because like, hey, because Rob, it's good to have you back, because I value your opinions on this kind of stuff.
Thanks, Jason. It's good to be back.
Yeah, but the thing is with Hickman's run is that he basically had like a huge plan for X-Men. It's basically starting with like it was like his like there was Dawn of X, there's gonna be Reign of X, and then Fall of X, which it's like implies like hey like a certain like arc for this kind of thing. And initially it's like with the radical changes he made to the X-Men status quo in House of X and Powers of X, I kind of figured that this was going to be kind of like a long walk back to the status quo. And it's like I was kind of fine with that because this is how like comics work. I mean, like we've got you know all these like a certain like idea of how these characters are meant to function. Like, and Hickman's reinvention of them was such that he took the X-Men so far away from what we know, like how they normally function, like in like the mansion in Westchester, just like like in a specific like superhero team fighting to protect a world that hates and fears them. And he just went and just like just totaled that idea and just like gave the entire mutant it's like the mute like a nation like its own like it's like island colony, and also gave them agency within a world that like wasn't really like about to like accept their existence, but also like offer them their own things like like mutant drugs in order to like help them recognize their sovereignty. All these things that basically like said, hey, this is like a new like like it's like a new era for the X franchise. But at the same time, there's this expectation that he was gonna like walk this back because like hey, this is how it all works in like superhero comics. What do you think about that, Rob? It's like this is how like it always seems with with superhero comics and all. It's always a walk back to the status quo.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's rare that it's not like that. I mean, aside from some characters, like they'll age up. You're never going to get Peter Parker in high school again,
Right.
unless they do another line like Ultimates.
Ultimate Spider-Man. Right.
Yeah, right. Ultimate Spider-Man, right? They'll make new characters to do that kind of thing. But yeah, but other than that, yeah, they usually always when they do something crazy, like even when it's not that crazy, like it's a legacy thing, like maybe they have, when they have Sam Wilson take over as Captain America, they have Rhodey take over as Iron Man, they wind up giving it back to the original character at some point, usually.
Yeah. And in this case, though, whatever plans that Hickman may have had to walk things back to the status quo, they were apparently upended by the other writers on the X-Men titles. Because it's worth noting that while Hickman has done like extended runs in the Marvel Universe, first with the Fantastic Four, and then with Avengers, with the Avengers title leading into the universe-destroying crossover that was Secret Wars. This is the first time that he's actually had to play well with other writers. It's like in a whole line. And apparently, it seems that 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 when Hickman was wanted to go on to the next stage of his X-Men plan, the all the other X writers basically said, you know what? we actually really like the status quo. We like the X-Men being on Krakoa, being their own nation, and like having like this kind of pull with like the international community, and also the complications like that arose out of the Ten of Swords crossover with the Araco mutants. And apparently now, like, this could be retcon later on, but apparently Hickman just basically like heard this and went, okay, this is fine, but I guess it conflicts with what I was going to do with the with the current storyline. So I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and wrap things up right now, which is why like his like after once the Hellfire Gala event came out, basically Hickman was basically kind of like a lame duck writer in terms of contributing to the event, because what followed immediately afterwards was his big wrap up to the to his X-Men, to his storylines in the current X era, and that would be Inferno. Now, people may remember that, hey, there's a previous X-Men storyline called Inferno back in the 80s. In fact, I've got it in my library. I've got it like looking at it right now. It's like where it was all about the storyline involving Madeline Pryor, like realizing what she was, that she was actually a clone of Jean Grey, and that instead of like being beholden to Mr. Sinister's plans, she was going to try, like it's like bring all these demons to Earth in order to prove that she was like a real person and all. So that's what like the original Inferno series is about. This one is a lot different, but it also bears mentioning that it's like that, hey, it's like we've actually had Madeline Pryor show up in a previous X-Men title. In fact, something I talked about recently, Hellions. And no, she does not actually have a part to play in this. It's like in this storyline, but I will say that I thoroughly enjoyed Hellions, and that everyone should go and buy the 3 volumes and the 2 issues that were part of Ten of Swords to get to get the full storyline of that. But also it's like, well, I've talked about like my thoughts on the X-Men stories up to this point. Rob, you've also read Hellions, and I guess also this is your time to talk about any like X-Men storylines up to the point of Inferno as well that you want to spotlight as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I guess I can start with Hellions. I did read Hellions, and I did enjoy it. It doesn't have much impact on Inferno, and so as somebody like I also read Inferno. I read Inferno, the original Inferno, when it came out, and so when I heard that this was Inferno, I was excited because I loved. There's a lot of nostalgia in Inferno to me because
it's a title that has weight to it.
Right. And I first started reading comics, or at least collecting comics. I read them a little bit earlier than that because I had friends who had comics. Inferno was the first full storyline that I read. I read a couple. I came in at the end of the Genosha thing, the first Genosha thing, where like mutants were being like held there against their will and having their powers wiped out and stuff. And then it, after that was Inferno. And so I was excited about, how are they going to tie into that? And then I read Hellions and Madeline Pryor shows up and I'm like, wow, they're really going to do this. I guess we'll get to the details of what happens in Inferno afterwards, but it does not involve Madeline Pryor at all.
Nope.
So, or demons. So, yeah, that was interesting. Hellions was great. There were characters in it that I am not particularly attached to, aside from Havoc. I didn't really like when Mr. Sinister was first created. I didn't really care for him. I didn't know anything about him. He was like just mysterious or whatever, because he showed up at the end of Inferno basically, and Cyclops seemed to have the original Inferno. Cyclops seemed to have destroyed him, but he's really interesting in this in Hellions.
He's fabulous.
Yes, I'm fascinated by the nature of a guy that not only does he want to clone everybody else, he creates clones of himself, and then has conflicts with his clones because they're all a little different.
Yeah, it's like when he tells his like clone, like when they're trying to decide who's going to go to Amenth, and like he says, it's like, well, like why don't you just like let me pepper yourself so I can like savor myself when I eat your face.
Yeah, that
Yes.
was a little disturbing, but so what I did want to say is, one thing about Hellions is that it has Psylocke in it as a leader, and I may have mentioned this before. I'm going to mention it again. I am so happy that they split Quanon and Betsy Braddock, because I loved both of the characters and both of their iterations. As somebody who read the long ago the comics when she was not a ninja, and then when she became a ninja, and both of those the character types were great. I really loved both of the characters, but it really bothered me the whole body swapping thing. And there was like at one point it was supposed to be plastic surgery, and just all that stuff is just really crazy. And you've got a white woman and an Asian woman's body and all that. There's a lot of odd stuff about that, and splitting them was the perfect answer. And so you've got the two comics that I probably enjoyed. I enjoyed three comics the most in this run were Hellions, Marauders, and Excalibur. And Excalibur has the other, the old Psylocke, who
Betsy
now goes
Braddock.
by, yeah, Betsy Braddock, who is now Captain Britain. We talked about this before. I know don't need to get into that, but I really enjoyed the Excalibur title. It did. It was kind of a personal enjoyment because I have some attachment to some of those characters. The storyline really didn't have any impact on this new Inferno, but I enjoyed it.
Even though it involved both Jubilee and Gambit.
Yeah, yes, my two least favorite X-Men.
So Tidney Howard was doing something right then.
Yeah, I mean the writing was good. I did not hate Jubilee's character in it. I just hate the character concept and the name. and I hated her taking, Kate Pryde's place as Wolverine's little sister, and all that stuff. But she was good in this comic. Gambit was okay. He annoys me mildly, but it wasn't that big of a deal. I've accepted that, he and Rogue are together, when at first I wasn't happy about that. So yeah, it was good. I don't really want to spoil anything about it. But the big one that I really, really enjoy is Marauders. It has a lot to do with the whole interplay with the Hellfire Club members, Sebastian Shaw and Emma, and then Kate is who was my favorite when I was young, and I really enjoy that how she's progressed, and now she's a real leader type now. Which is really cool. It's cool to see a character go from, the audience kid stand-in to being somebody that I can totally see as, a full-blown team leader. So it's great. It's great to have that. And I enjoyed how they dealt with the characters. They had one of the comics, they put a copy. I don't know if it was a full old comic, but they put at least a large excerpt of an old X-Men comic that had this Hellfire Club set of Hellfire Club events in it. It was around the time, it was like slightly before Dark Phoenix. And then they had tie-ins to that really old comic, which was really cool.
Okay, it sounds like you're talking about like the last volume where one of where Sebastian Shaw wanted one of his ex-lovers to be brought back.
Yeah.
And then Emma told him that, oh no, it's like she never died.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was really cool.
Yeah, and that was actually the thing is like that. I don't think that was actually like them repurposing old art. They actually got like an old school artist, Klaus Janson, to just draw those.
Oh, no, I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
They did do that, but there wasn't a literal reprint of an earlier one. that's from the Dark Phoenix area. The comic before that.
Okay.
Maybe, hey, maybe I was reading, something else, because I had, I don't know, maybe somebody had pointed me to the other one. This was, I read this like 2 weeks ago, and so my memory's a little fuzzy, but I totally read that section. I'd have to look it up online to say it. Anyway, the point is, yeah, that was really cool. It wasn't just the old lover; it was also one of his friends.
Oh yeah, Harry Leland.
Yeah, Harry Leland was brought back. I mean, Harry Leland's been gone since basically the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's interesting. It's cool that they brought him back. I did read a couple others. I don't really have a lot to say about it. I skimmed over X-Force. I probably should have read X-Force more. There are a couple
it's
of...
like, I was like, I as like before we get into like this stuff, I'm saying yes. It's like, yeah, people could have read X-Force and gotten more about the storylines we're going to talk about, but no, you don't need to read them. So
you don't
it's
need to. There's one scene. There's one, like a reveal in it.
There's a
that would
couple.
have way more impact if you had read X-Force.
I think it says is like more about like that Hickman is willing to play nice with what everyone else is going to do with the X-Men franchise going forward from him.
Yeah.
It's like I think that's cool. But as far as like going forward to like Inferno, well, Inferno like this time around is basically hinges all around like the relationship between Mystique and it's like and her ex-wife Destiny, because if you remember from the everyone remember from the House of X and Powers of X miniseries, they were the result of Moira McTaggart dying in her third life, because Moira apparently has as it was revealed in the that miniseries, she is a mutant and she has the power of resurrection, and like when she dies, apparently she wipes out the timeline that she was living in. Now people may like Disney like wait a second, like, when she dies, like shouldn't the timeline continue on as is? It's like, well, by normal time travel standards, yes, but apparently it's like something that's made explicit for this storyline. Like whenever Moira dies, the timeline she's in wipes out. Whether or not you think that that's fair play, it's like that's irrelevant, because that's apparently those are apparently the rules that Hickman has set up for this set up for Moira. But basically, in her third life, Moira was killed by by Pyro after Destiny ordered him to like burn her alive, because Moira decided, hey, you know what? It's like because in Moira's third life, she discovered a cure for mutanity, and it's like, and that was something that Destiny and Mystique were not having any part of, and well, and so like that's after that timeline, Moira basically invested her subsequent lives in finding ways for like mutants to succeed, and by her 10th life, the current X-Men timeline that we're a part of, the House of X Powers of X timeline, well, apparently it looks to have worked. But the thing is, like, Moira has also taken herself off of the board. It's like in order to ensure that this timeline sticks. But one of the things is that she's worried about is like like mutant precogs coming back. But it also seems like she's just basically got a specific issue with Destiny coming back, because she's because of the whole ordering Pyro to burn her alive thing in her third life. So there's that. But as we start with Inferno, we find out that the X-Men are still trying to find ways to defeat Orcus, the anti-mutant human machine science collective that have been determined to wipe them out. And apparently, like, even though it's like like they've been like sending like specific teams to do this, it's like they're not making any progress, because, well, whenever like the teams die in an assault against Orcus, they're too far out from it's like from the X-Men collective for them to like remember like how their mission failed. And so that's it. And so this is causing like Professor X, Magneto, who, let's remember, are the only two mutants who are aware of Moira's existence, to to question what's going on with her. It's like, what's going on with their plans? Like, yeah, you know what? Like, we've been trying to work this out, and everything we've been doing has only served to ensure the rise of Nimrod, and it's like and in this anti-mutant machine consciousness. And so the Professor X Magneto was just telling her, have you considered making trying to make good with with machines? And Moore's like, no, it's like, I've for 1,000 years, it's like, I know what works here. It's like, I'm telling you what you need to do. And also, it's with you stringing along Mystique, like in terms of her promising her to bring back Destiny. It's like, you need to actually make some efforts to make sure that's not an issue. And so they say the big thing with the first issue of Inferno is is Moira trying to make the stakes clear for Xavier and Magneto, and also just establish the thing that, oh wait, you can't bring back make so that you can't bring back Destiny. But also, and I know this is over 20 minutes into the podcast at this point, but hey, I think this is a good point to point out that we're going full spoilers here from here on out, because we really can't talk about Inferno without talking about spoilers for what's going on for the storyline, and also what's going to talk about with X Lives Next Death of the Wolverine. So I should have mentioned that to you earlier, Rob, but I guess before going on with that, how do you feel about Mystique? Do you feel how do you feel about what Xavier and Magneto have done to her so far?
Yeah, how do I feel about Mystique? See, I have a lot of thoughts about this, but I haven't really been I don't have a lot of empathy for Mystique. Mystique
Neither do I, but go on.
Yeah, Mystique has always been in it for herself, so I'm kind of okay with what they've been doing. Clearly there must have been a better way to deal with her. They could have told her that, because Destiny died a long time ago. Maybe they could have told her that that they never had a backup of Destiny or something like that, but they just kept putting it off instead. So from Mystique's perspective, I understand her being really angry, because this is her wife, that there's nobody more important to her than Destiny. And furthermore, here we are in a society where they are accepting Apocalypse and Mr. Sinister and all these villains.
Well, they kind of had to accept Sinister. I mean, I know what you're saying, but at the same time, Sinister seems to be a more Apocalypse seems to have made a hero turn in Hickman's era. Sinister, however, well, it's they're only entertaining his acceptance onto the council because they need him for his genetic database more than anything else.
Right, but the only point I'm trying to make is they're letting all these flat out, like lifelong, terrible villains on, but they won't resurrect Destiny, somebody who would benefit them in such an incredible way. Because if you don't know about Moira, why would you not want a precog that could help you in that way? Destiny is incredibly valuable. And so Mystique has got to be, super suspicious. There's something going on. I totally don't blame Mystique for not being happy about how they're treating her.
Yeah, it's and I agree with you about the whole Mystique, being in it for herself, and that's that's kind of my feelings about the character. Is that it's she's only been in this for herself, and the times that like I've enjoyed her as a character have basically been when she's been kind of like press ganged into working for like the good of mutants, like because like someone's implanted bombs in her head, like in like the Dark X-Men storyline, or even her solo series when she was working for like for Xavier that time. But at the same time, it's like this whole thing, like Xavier and Magneto thinking that they could like string Mystique along, like I'm looking at this and thinking, my God, like you guys are like some of the smartest people in mutant kind, and you should have seen this coming. I mean, like
Yeah, agreed.
they like them stringing Mystique along is dumb. If I was them, I would have just like thrown her in the pit along with Sabretooth, because that this is like the end result. She would have just like burn them at some point, which she does in the first issue, because we find out at the end that she's brought back Destiny, and she's managed to like convince the Quiet Council to vote to like to allow Destiny onto the Quiet Council at the same time. In fact, it's worth mentioning that like the whole what you said about the value of a precog, like to this, like to like the whole to the value of mutanity. That's the whole argument she pitched to it's like to Benedict Perry Exodus.
Yes.
It's like about about the it's like her about why you want to have her on the Quiet Council. So, and basically, it's like when this happens, like Moira is pissed, and she's like like, what have you done? Like like you guys had one job. Don't bring back any precogs. And well, it's like that's at this point, like Xavier and Magneto are basically saying, like, okay, well, what if we bring someone else onto this team? What if we bring in Emma? Because like Emma's been kind of responsive to our to our aims and all. Because like, hey, they got her on board, like saying, hey, like they come on board, like for like to the Quiet Council for the sake of the children. And I mean, we all know, like that didn't go well.
Yeah. Now we're getting into the many things that I have to say about this, and I don't know if you want to just describe everything that happens first, or have me bring up my opinions as we go along. One thing I think that is important to mention is, I think it's important, since this is a full spoiler podcast, we should mention, because people might go, well, how did Mystique manage to bring Destiny back? Well, she used deception to convince the Five, which is the 5 mutants that are able to resurrect people, into doing it themselves. So she disguised herself as Professor X, and then told Hope that she would have a chance at using Cerebro for the first time to implant the memories into Destiny. She convinced them to resurrect Destiny, and then had Hope do the memory implantation, and it worked.
Yeah, and I think this is probably something that's probably going to have like long-term ramifications now that like Hope can do this.
Yes,
It's like it's going to like like it's not going to be completely beholden to Professor X.
Yeah,
like to do this. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think this is like a good thing that like opens up possibilities, for the storyline, especially when we get into like X Lives Next Death of Wolverine, when we get the bit where like they've got issues with resurrecting Omega Red with his carbonadium synthesizer.
Yeah.
And well, Hope says like, this is like kind of a bad thing, and Beast goes, no, you're cooks. We're giving you the recipe. Now you cook. But that's I'm getting ahead of things here.
Yeah. So, do you want to just go through and describe everything, and then we can talk about my opinions about it, or do you want me to talk about my opinions as we bring up each point?
Oh, you can go ahead with your opinions, because like the second issue of Inferno is it's mostly centered around just like like the machinations that Mystique was doing to bring back that Destiny, and also like like them trying, like Xavier and Magneto trying to shore up their their side of things, and things going badly. So
Right.
yeah, so go ahead and say your opinions about this.
So yeah, so they let Emma in on the secret. They bring her to Moira, introduce her to Moira, explain that that she's a mutant and that her powers and everything. She's lived all these lives, and then this is they're trying to succeed this time by doing everything differently. And Emma is really mad that they kept this secret from her, which I'm annoyed about because of all of the characters in, there are certain characters that I consider in X-Men to be extremely pragmatic, and I think Emma is one of them. And I think my opinion is that Emma would understand. I can understand her being mad, but I think that she would understand the value in having a backup plan if it still doesn't succeed. Because you said, Jason, in the beginning, oh, it looks like this one worked. You don't know that. They haven't been able to stop Orcus. There is no reason to believe that this plan has worked yet, because Moira has gone much further in the future with her other plans, and they have failed. So it is way premature to have the idea that it has worked at this point. I do believe that the idea that is implanted, I don't remember if this is in the first issue, the second issue, or what issue it is. There is an idea that's supposed to be given to the reader, and I think this is Hickman kind of giving himself an out. I have an overall opinion about this series that I'm kind of waiting to say, but there is a character called Omega Sentinel.
Oh yeah.
Omega Sentinel is working with Orcus, and she reveals that she came from the future, that her consciousness was sent into the past, into her body. That's how I understood it.
That's how it is.
Okay. And she says, so Moira does her thing. She's lived 9 lives before this one, and she says the machines always win, right? Omega Sentinel is a machine. She says, I've been sent back because the mutants always win. So this is an idea that's supposed to be implanted in the reader. Oh, we don't know. Maybe they'll win this time, right? That's what's implanted into the reader. Sure. Okay. But the X-Men don't know that. Moira doesn't know that. Mystique doesn't know that. Destiny doesn't know that, even though she's a precog. Because she doesn't know, as she says in the, I don't remember, maybe it wasn't this comic, or maybe it was
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying about Destiny. I think that the out there that Hickman was giving here was the fact that what was going on in the future when Doug Ramsey shows up. So it's like the whole what goes on here has great ramifications for the future. So it's like she probably wasn't able to see as far as what happened after he showed up.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk more about that, but
Okay.
but at one point she says, "I don't see the future." That's the point of she doesn't see exactly how things are going to happen. She has a series of she basically can see. My assumption is a series of possible futures.
Yeah, but I think the thing is that we're meant to take away with Omega Sentinel storyline is that this is like an inverse of Days of Future Past.
Right.
Yeah, it's like like in this is where the mutants finally lose. It's like no, it's like the mutants win, and they're able to just take on the the machine dominions. It's like from the future, and now Omega Sentinel has come back from the past from the future to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right.
So.
Okay. So, that is something that the reader knows, and that's for the reader. But I just want to say that the actions taken by Emma, she doesn't know that. She doesn't know about Omega Sentinel. So for her to react in the way she reacts, not only do I not feel like it makes sense in terms of her pragmatism, or her understanding. I get it. You had to keep it a secret because if anybody learned about it, here's this way to undo everything, that kind of stuff. I don't even remember. I've blurred all of the issues together, so I don't remember, what happens in which thing. So if you want to talk about the second or the third issue or whatever,
I'll keep going.
Pardon me?
Oh, go ahead and keep going.
Okay, so the deal is that I'm just gonna start talking about Emma. I'm gonna talk about what Emma does. Emma decides to help Destiny Mystique, which I think is totally nuts. It is completely reckless, and all these people seem to think. Maybe it's not all these people, but Emma, and there's a point which I don't remember if Mystique was involved in this. I think for Mystique it's personal, but Emma at some point, for some reason, seems to think that Moira's existence is dangerous because they can destroy everything that they have. Well, but the whole point is they don't know if it's going to succeed, and so she is the backup plan. And for her to go scorched earth, or Inferno, as you might call it, and side with Mystique and Destiny, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I was really not happy with that. So
okay, I can understand. I can understand that. I feel that that Emma is like she's been more emotional. It's like and more personal about like her attachment to like mutant destiny. It's like and so speaking for me personally, I can accept the fact that she would that she would do this. It's like as kind of a it's kind of a way to spite Xavier Magneto for what they did to her, and also the fact that hey, like but by doing this, like she's not actually like risking anything by giving Mystique and Destiny the gun that will turn like Forge's gun that will turn like mutants into humans. It's like like she can do this. It's like and not actually risk anything.
She risks all of the future of mutant kind. That's what she risks.
Except that by turning Moira into a human and by taking away her ability to reset the timeline, it's like I think that's like the thing. That's the thing right there. By turning her, I think we're meant to accept that by turning with Emma giving them the means to turn Moira into a human. Like they're sealing in like this timeline, to be the one that counts.
This timeline, the one that counts, that may wind up with them all dying anyway to the machines.
Yeah, but this is also like it's like it's
because they haven't been able to beat Orcus.
Yeah, that's right. But also, it's like it's it's like the whole like Marvel like timeline thing. It's like hey, this timeline that we're in right now, it's the one that counts, and we've got to like make sure it matters more than anything else. It's the sacred timeline, for lack of a better term.
I would like to know what Hickman originally planned. I am hoping. I don't know that this is going to happen, but it probably won't happen. I'd really love a series of what if comics that Hickman wrote that had the same artists that would show the original plan for the ending of the storyline, because I am not happy with this ending at all.
Yeah, I can't really argue with you there, because it's like and there's also like this the assumption that like one of the things that was seeded in this storyline is the idea that Moira lost her nerve, in the sense that she realized that, oh my god, it's like we're trying to do things differently, and oh my god, it didn't work, so I'm going back to Muir Island to get the mutant cure, and I'm going to try and find a way to seed it in order to like make sure that mutants like don't come around anymore.
That is the second thing that I'm angry about.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, yeah, I know she'd been visiting Muir Island, but it feels like it's like, well, everybody said, hey, we want to keep this, and Hickman's like, oh man, I had this plan. Well, what can I do to keep this way? Well, I guess if we make it so that Moira can't reset the timeline, that keeps it this way. Well, how would we do that? Well, I guess she'd have to be human. What can we do to to make her human or lose her powers. Well, there's the Forge's gun, and we'll give, the Destiny thing. We'll have Mystique do that to her, right? It just, but there's got to be that motivation as well. Destiny in her third life, they didn't do it then. They had the cure there. They could have done it to her immediately and then wiped her and killed her there. Destiny clearly wanted her on their side. And so that's why they did not only did Pyro kill her, not only did Destiny have Pyro kill her, he had her kill her slowly so that she would remember that and not want to go through it again. And from then on, Moira completely stopped with the cure thing. Completely stopped. And I mean, like, lived 1,000 years. How, and then there was the whole thing, this experience radicalized her, which was, I think, at the end of her seventh life, because she went through and killed all the Trasks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she realized that the AI was an inevitability, and that radicalized her. And at that point, that means that she is full on the mutant side, and that's when she went to Magneto, and then she went to Apocalypse, right? Because she's like, this has got to happen. I'm all in on mutants, and so I am the second thing I'm angry about is this idea that Moira gave up and now just wants to cure all the mutants. She literally wants to wipe them out by making it so that by making a cure that makes it so that mutants never even develop their powers, so they don't even know what they're missing. It flies completely in the face of the entire concept of this story arc, and I hate it.
I'm not going to argue with you about that. There, I think that like me, the only way I can like say this works is that like maybe she felt that she was going to have another life to work this out, but well, we know that didn't work because in the end, and I guess like this is like the only issue I have with like the main issue I have with Inferno is that in the end it's like Mystique and Destiny are able to get Moira alone and depowered, and are basically gonna like find a way to take her out. But while Xavier and Magneto are left to fight against Omega Sentinel and Nimrod, which it's kind of interesting fight, because I think that Hickman does a good job of setting things up to hey, how things are going to work out in a nice logical fashion. But when Doug Ramsey shows up at the end, it's like on one hand it's like this is like I like the way that he rations things out, because like one of the other subplots for Inferno is that Doug Ramsey and Warlock have known about everything that Xavier, Magneto, and Moira have planned, because they were tasked with finding a way to communicate with Krakoa, and they also had their own plans, like way to since they were designed to find a way to do that, they were able to find a way to make sure the tech responded to them as well. So they knew about everything that was going on in Moira's No Place.
Yeah, and the No Place was supposed to be hidden even from Krakoa. And Krakoa knew as well because of Doug.
Yeah, and it's like, and so on one hand, it's like a really like oh wait, let me tell you how things are going to go. Bit when Doug shows up to to let Mystique and Destiny know like how things are going to go, because once Destiny and Mystique have made Moira into a human, they basically made her like susceptible to the laws of Krakoa, which one of them is murder no man. And on one hand, it's like, okay, I can see how this works, but at the same time, it's kind of like, well, Doug, okay, I see what you're trying to do here, but considering what Moira's aims were, it's like your actions here are more just like rules lawyer, like for the sake of being rules lawyer, more than anything else. And on one hand, it works for me because like, hey, I like any effort you make to troll Mystique for what she's been doing, it's like, hey, I'm fine with that. That's cool. But at the same time, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You know, it's like
Let-
in terms of like the long term longevity of Krakoa as a nation state.
Yes, and yeah, let's point that out. Doug shows up after it would have been most helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Doug, you know, Krakoa and Warlock alone can both handle Mystique and Destiny. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Not Doug alone, but they, each of those characters alone can handle Mystique and Destiny. They could have showed up before Mystique depowered Moira because they knew what was going on the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
He chose to show up after, and that makes me mad because surely Doug and Warlock and Krakoa would want to have some kind of a backup. They've known about Moira all this time. So that makes me mad. The other thing that makes me mad is it has been established that depowered mutants on Krakoa are still regarded as mutants.
Yes, because of the Crucible.
Yes. And now they have like a souped up version of the Crucible, which is, I think it's from maybe the X-Men comic or something like that, where they can choose to just walk into like the astral plane. I mean, there were two different things that they did. They had like they had the temple, that's in Way of X. They had
Yes.
that temple thing. Is that the one that they can just walk into and then decide that they want to come back as a mutant? And like it eliminated the need for the Crucible, so they don't have to do it slowly. They can just go in. Moira could have come back that way and gotten her powers back. Except, yeah, they said, oh, but there are no backups of you. Why weren't there backups of her?
Because that would have been convenient for the storyline.
Right. And it feels like this is what happens when you don't follow through on an original plan. One of the things that I have learned over the years, I used to, like primarily read, Marvel comics and with some DC, but I didn't read a lot of it. And the big thing about, putting the toys back in the box is that it allows you to tell a complete story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you tell your complete story and you put the toys back in the box, right? Because if you don't put the toys back in the box, then maybe the story isn't done, right? So a lot of my favorite comics as an adult have been outside of Marvel and DC because they have to keep things going. So like Invincible had an ending,
Yes.
You in this, Hickman's previous work has been so good because he had an ending and it was such a good ending. His Fantastic Four work and his Avengers work were just so great because he planned it all out and he had his ending.
And now when he's like has to work with like, a larger group of like writers, it's like all the majority of whom basically decided that, hey, we really like the status quo you set up. We want to keep running with it. And that's antithetical to what his plan was. Prior to the objective he was told, he was like the remit he was given within Marvel. Basically, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Marvel told him, like, yeah, it's like you can do whatever you want. You just need to like be sure to bring X-Men back to like, the Academy in Westchester when you're done.
Right.
So, but at the end, it's like, on one hand, it's like I respect the fact that like Hickman created like a status quo that the writers are inspired to keep running with, but at the same time, it's like the storyline he was telling, was just kind of like kneecapped. It's like at the end, it's like, and in the end, it's like well, you got other writers who are just kind of like are gonna have to like force like find their own storylines within what he was like setting up, and that's I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing with what we've got, but at the same time, on one hand, while Inferno feels like a best effort in terms of like hey, I'm just gonna like wrap up what I was telling, and like find some way to like shuttle off Moira to some kind of like free for all status quo, like so other writers can like do their own thing with, like that's fine. at the same time, it's like I can't say it's like wholly satisfying. It's like in the end. I mean, it's like I enjoyed it, and at the same time, like seeing something. I read this entirely on Marvel Unlimited, so like the fact that I didn't have to pay for it, that's fine. So that's a plus as well. But at the same time, it's like it's like I said, I was kind of hoping for more here. And while I do think that there is like there are some interesting like storylines to mind going forward, specifically with Orcus. It's like I think he does a good job of leaving that storyline up in the air in a way for like future writers to follow up on. Like it's like that's good right there. It's like, and at the same time, he's also leaving like leaving this like the like storylines for with Jerry Dugan in X-Men proper, and also Kieran Gillen in Immortal X-Men to follow up on. Like that's I don't know, I appreciate that at least. Like there's a way forward for this, and in fact that way forward involves Wolverine, right?
Yeah. I have a couple more things to say about Inferno though before we
Go
go.
for it.
Um, I agree with you that I don't blame those other writers for wanting to keep the status quo. It is really interesting, but I guess I feel a loss that I don't get that original ending. I would love it if they would do it in a what if. It would really help my closure. It would give me closure.
I think you're right. I would like to see like a what if style storyline. Like what if Jonathan Hickman was allowed to continue his X-Men storyline to the end?
Yes.
It's like yeah, but at the same time, it's like yeah, it's like I wonder if this has like been a learning experience for Hickman if he realizes like because apparently he's got his own like creative own stuff going forward. It's like I understand that he's apparently been contracted by Marvel for some other future project that has not been revealed. So I wonder if this is going to be something that's going to involve other writers, or if it's going to be like his Avengers and Fantastic Four work, where he is the main architect going forward.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'm going to say to Marvel. I'm not going to read those comics until he's done and it's been confirmed that he got to finish his storyline.
That's fair.
And if it hasn't, I probably won't read it at all. So I got a few things. Here's some things that I missed about it. Like for one thing, maybe this is going to be resolved at some point in the future, but it's going to be by other writers, and I don't know. Like we still don't know why Kate Pryde can't use the portals. It's been this long. We still don't know why.
Oh, that's Jerry Dugan's storyline.
Oh, okay. That's only his. Like Hickman had nothing to do with that.
Yeah, it's like I mean, like at the very end of Marauders, remember it's like that. Those last couple pages was Kate going to Mr. Fantastic. So
yeah. Okay. Well, is he writing the new?
Oh, he's writing X-Men right now.
Okay, well, anyway, I hope that somebody answers that question because this is too long to not know why. The one thing that I really was excited about, and maybe this is my own fault. In Powers of X, there was this character named Rasputin who had a really cool character design, and there was
she was like Colossus meets magic, right?
Yeah, she was Colossus, Kitty Pryde, because she had 5 different people in her.
Yeah, she was a chimera, right?
Yeah, she was a chimera. She had 5 different people in her, and I forget the other ones. She didn't actually have magic in her, but she wielded the soul sword. Mm-hmm. So it was effectively like being 6 different people. But anyway, that character ended by ripping Zorn's mask off, which released his singularity, right? And so you made a point that when Moira dies, it wipes out the timeline and there is nothing left of it. It was established in that comic that there is one exception. And that is that if somebody becomes a part of like the phalanx or they reach a certain level of consciousness, they will know. They will still retain their memories. And it was established that those entities exist inside singularities. And so the question is, because they seem to make a big deal about Rasputin, like she was in one of the, in those tarot cards,
Mhm.
that Moira was around in that fair.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So there's this impression like she was going to have some big impact, and
Hmm.
she was cool in that comic, but she didn't really have, like a big impact. I was under the impression that eventually she would somehow come into this timeline by being saved through that singularity somehow. Now, that's just I'm not going to blame Hickman for that, but I have to wonder, was she going to, and did we not get to see it because of this early ending? Um, uh, let's see. I'm scrolling through some stuff. The whole Araco thing. To me, if this is the ending, yeah, they're gonna do stuff with it in the future. But it didn't seem to have any bearing on the ending of this story on Inferno. The only bearing it had is that Bay the Blood Moon was in there to fight. That was the third character that could take Mystique and Destiny on alone. That they were there in that final scene with Doug and the others. It felt like the author writing half a book and then leaving. That compared to his previous works.
Yeah. Regarding the Araco mutants, that seems to be something that's going to be follow up on in X-Men Red, and because it was also touched upon in Sword. Because that was a series written by Al Ewing, who gave us the Immortal Hulk. And if you haven't read Sword, Rob, I highly recommend it, because let's just say that Ewing has done a really interesting take on Abigail Brand.
Yeah. So I was reading it, but because of time constraints, and it felt like it wasn't really going to lead into Inferno, which it didn't.
It doesn't, but
yeah.
But yeah, it's like if I would recommend reading through, like, because it's 11 issues so far, and it's going to lead directly into X-Men Red, which is also going to pick up. I imagine it's going to pick up on, because he was writing a really great Guardians of the Galaxy series at the same time as well. But apparently both series were canceled just because of sales. But now he's given the chance to, like, keep pushing those storylines forward into X-Men Red. But because basically, Storm is now on it's the head of the Great Council, the Great Ring on Mars. Like, she's basically leading the Araco mutants now.
Yeah.
And also Abigail Brand, well, if you're not aware of what her perspective on all this is, you really should read Sword, because oh my god, Ewing has found a really great perspective for the character to take. And also, well, he's found a way to give Henry Peter Gyrick what's been coming to him for a couple decades now.
Okay, well, maybe I'll have to finish that up. I have one final thing to say about Inferno.
Yes.
Or it's a question.
Yeah.
There's a scene where he is fighting Nimrod. He and Xavier are fighting multiple Nimrods.
Magneto and Xavier?
Yeah, he and Magneto, sorry. And Xavier appears to disassemble Nimrod's head with his some kind of power. What is that?
Man, it's like, I know that Xavier has basically been described as a mega mutant in terms of psychic power.
Right.
And that, Jean Grey has basically been, like, described as, like, also a mega mutant in terms of psychic power, but not in terms of psychic power, but not in terms of telekinesis.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, in order to make that scene work, I have to assume that we're assuming that Xavier has some, psychic power, or some telekinetic power, or that, his psychic, his telepathic power was enough to convince Omega to Nimrod to disassemble himself to that point, but not any further. I mean, it's like, I know what you're saying, and I know it's like it's a bad plot point right there, based on what we know about the characters, like power limits and all.
Yeah,
but
it's never mentioned again.
This is like a no prize moment, in the sense that, we've got to, like, say, well, like, Xavier was able to, like, convince Nimrod to disassemble himself based on his, like, telepathic influence on the character's, like, actual mind, but no further.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Okay, we can talk about Wolverine now. Sorry
Okay.
about that.
No, it's cool because basically with the follow up series, X Lives and X Deaths of Wolverine, or 10 Lives and 10 Deaths of Wolverine. Well, basically this is like not as long to talk about because basically it's basically a question of whether or not how cool you think the idea of what if Wolverine had to relive both Quantum Leap and the Terminator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Live series mostly follows that storyline,
Yep.
and the Death series seems to follow what happens to Moira.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that it's like the live series, it's basically like Wolverine, jumping through his past lives to stop Omega Red from trying to take out like Professor X, prevent him from being born. And this is something that well, it's like if you've been reading X Force, which we haven't, well, that probably made like a lot more sense, but at the same time, you can just accept the fact that, Mega Red has gone bad. It's like, and he's like, accepted Mikhail Rasputin's offer of hey, it's like, you want to get in good with the Russian government and be like a good Russian mutant for the Russian government, then you need to I need to stab you with the Cerebro sword so you can go back in time and kill Professor X before you have a chance to form the X-Men, which is a perfectly serviceable superhero storyline. The parallel series, X Deaths of Wolverine, is basically Moira, like following up on Moira after she is able to escape from the No Place after after Doug Ramsey Cypher basically points out the problems with Mystique and Destiny, killing her right there. I mean, not that this actually stops Mystique from trying to kill Moira in the real world. It just stops her from killing her right then and there. So now Mystique is just gonna go and try and kill her in the real world without any proper repercussions. Only with the added complication of a phalanx infested Wolverine coming back from the future to apparently kill Moira for reasons, which it's like on one hand, it's like this series was written by Benjamin Percy. Both they're two 10-issue, 5-issue miniseries that are like very interconnected. And to Percy's credit, he's got some solid twists for how they're supposed to play out, because it's not just Wolverine going back in time, quantum leaping to stop Omega Red. Well, because Omega Red has additional means of possessing people, and also it turns out that it's not just him going back in time, like in Serial, it's going back in time at the same time as everything is happening. And also when I say that the Wolverine is coming back in the future to kill Moira, well, he may actually be like the bad guy in this scenario. So Rob, your thoughts?
So I don't have a lot of thoughts about the Lives one. It's okay. It's a standard, go back in time and save the person thing. Yeah, that's okay, that's fine. It kind of felt like a what if Creed was a Omega Red thing for a while, because he was showing up, and he would you revisit these past periods of Wolverine's life, and he would show up at certain points, and at first it seemed like he was in a similar position as where Sabretooth was.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't really continue past like the first issue or something. That was just my first thought. But I have a fair amount to say about the 10 Deaths of Wolverine.
So that's basically the one where it's basically the missions were meant to convince us that Moira is the new ex-villain, right?
Yes, and again, I'm not happy about that. The first thing I want to point out is Wolverine comes back in time to kill Moira because Moira basically becomes a post-human and kills all the mutants, which means, again, that the mutants do not win in this timeline. And the only reason that she did that is because Mystique depowered her. So it just is. This comic in itself is an argument for why the previous comic should not have been written that way.
So it's like, are you giving the slow clap right now? 'Cause, like,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like I know what you mean. It's like I mean, like, turning Moira into a villain at this point just really seems kind of reductive. As is the fact that, hey, like, she wears Banshee as a skin suit at one point,
Oh,
which is
that was
like,
awful.
yeah, that was like, what? I mean, like, on one hand, I mean, it takes a lot to, like, like, shock me, like, in terms, like, like, what, like, superhero comics can do at this point. But I mean, on one hand, I kind of respect that. Jesus, man, it's like that was messed up, and I can respect that for shocking me. But at the same time, it's kind of like, oh man, it's kind of awful, especially when. But also, it's kind of treated as an afterthought, because like we just
Yeah.
get that one data page, and then the next page is like, oh, what? She's like, she's got like, oh, what? There's Banshee, like, oh my god, this is skin. Oh my god, she's wearing is in a skin suit. Oh yeah, that's it's too much. But I mean, on one hand, it's like I kind of I respect the writer Benjamin Percy for his, like, for offering, like, like the twists he does in the storyline. But at the same time, it's like I can't say that this is like a big kind of like game changer. It doesn't sell me on the idea of Moira as an excellent villain. It just feels kind of like it just feels reductive, like I was saying. Like,
Yes.
oh, it's like, she's the villain now. It's like, oh yeah, it's like this is exactly like the way I think, like, things would have gone after Inferno, and that's okay. That's
Yeah.
fine. And apparently according to, like, some of, like, some of the free comic book day storylines that are supposed to be coming out, that apparently she may be wearing Mary Jane Watson to the next Hellfire Gala.
Oh,
Now,
jeez.
I don't think that she's wearing Mary Jane as a skin suit, because I imagine, like, the Spider-Man office would have been saying, "Whoa, nope,
Yeah.
not gonna happen." But I imagine, like, that's something that's there's gonna be some writing around that, there.
Yeah.
So, but as far as, like, Mora being made into a villain, I mean, it's like, okay, I can see that based on the writing, like how Hickman exited Inferno. But just, like, to have her set up as a villain just kind of feels like, uh, okay. I mean, maybe it's something that would have made it's something that makes sense. But maybe it's something I would have felt more emotionally invested in, when I was a younger person, as opposed to, 20 years ago, as opposed to right now, when I just look at this and go, oh yeah, it's like you're just taking the path of least resistance here. I
Yeah.
see.
It should have for me to buy that, there needed to be some epiphany on her part where she realized in some way that most or all mutants were evil. But basically, Mystique is evil. And because Mystique is evil, she literally calls all mutants devils in this comic.
Well, I
There's
guess
some
I guess if
quote.
you're using Mystique as your, like, moral guideline for mutants, then yes, I can see how that would be. But it's like most mutants aren't Mystique. So
Yeah, it's just I'm frustrated. And there's a later quote in the comic that says, "Forever is where I live. I tried to take you all with me, but you chose not to come. No, Destiny, Mystique, and Emma chose to ruin the mutant race's failsafe. That
insert sad
it's not
trombone
all of
here.
them. It's just terrible. I'm I'm so mad. And then in it, Xavier has decided to side with everybody else. He's not, well, the Quiet Council, because Emma told the whole Quiet Council, and they're all okay with hunting Moira. And it's stupid. I hate this whole thing. And then she uses the gun on, what is it, Forge? And then she says, makes some comment about it. How does it feel to lose something central to you? But she's claiming that she wanted to cure everyone, so it's not central to her. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just terrible.
Yeah, I think that with Forge, it's like it's not a big deal because like worst case scenario is that he just kills himself and they bring him back.
Yes, see? And she could have done it too. They could, well, except of course they say that she doesn't have a Cerebro backup. It's just why you can't tell me that, because they've never mentioned that before. They've never mentioned before that Moira doesn't have a Cerebro backup. It would have been so important for her to have a backup. She is the single most important person. Otherwise, why protect her so much? Why have her hiding?
I think you're right. And when I told you, when I asked you about contributing to this podcast, I said, like, hey Rob, I think you're gonna have opinions about this.
Yes.
I mean, this is
You
basically
expected
what
this?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, and I really can't blame you for for this. It's like, and yeah, it's like I think that a lot of this, like between Inferno and X Lives and X Death of Wolverine, is just them scrambling to like find a way to like make all this make sense, to like the longtime readers of X-Men like me.
Yeah.
So like I mean,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, it's like and on one hand, it's like it's like I can I can accept, I can accept this. I mean, it's like it's not like it's like actively awful in the sense that like like, oh my god, it's like I gotta stop reading X-Men. This, I mean, like, I can make a lot of this stuff work, like thinking about it, but at the same time, I can acknowledge that I can acknowledge that idea, like what you're saying is like this is not how it was meant to go, and this is just like people like trying to scramble to make this work, like like in order to like keep other people reading. So,
Yes.
but also I will say that I do like what Jerry Dugan did in his first volume of X-Men, basically um, like finding ways, finding new storylines to tell within the like the status quo that Hickman set up, basically with Orcus and also with the X-Men Resurrection status as well, and also with when you say that when I hear that Kieran Gillen is writing the Quiet Council books, Immortal X-Men, then oh my god, it's like I am gonna be there for that because Gillen has not disappointed me, like in terms of like what he's written. In fact, the fabulous Mr. Sinister that we both love, that
Mhm.
that was him. He was the guy who established Sinister, that persona of Sinister. Yeah, someone who like basically was cloning himself because he realized that he was the best of all things.
Yeah.
And he's basically, and apparently like there's something in the first issue of Immortal X-Men that apparently that Galen is running with Mr. Sinister that I I am not exposing myself to, but I want to find out about that once the first volume comes out.
Yeah, I exposed myself to it.
Okay, don't tell me what it is, but
I'm not going to.
but yeah, it's like listen, I think that I'm on board with whatever Guylan is doing, and it's like I guess given all the decades that I've been reading for X-Men, it's going to take like a lot more than just these like disappointing storylines to like get me to stop reading. I mean, like I don't think these storylines are bad, but I can realize that like there was they could have been much more. Had Hickman. I mean, my feeling is like Hickman wasn't necessarily dealt a raw deal, but just the fact that I would like to have seen like if everyone just like march in lockstep with what he was doing, and we kind of probably could have gotten something better, and then they could have gone on to do whatever they wanted to do after that.
Yeah, I want to say that when I express my uh, disappointment in this podcast, it comes from a place where um, I think it was issue 2 of, was it Powers of 10? The one, the the So Many Lives of Moira
Yeah.
Taggart. That issue, I loved that comic so much, that issue so much, that I made people that don't read comics read it. Because and so I was very invested in what is going to happen with Moira. So to have it be like this was extremely disappointing.
Okay. So when you say that you got people who haven't read like X-Men to like get to read this, so what did Iris think about this?
Oh no, I didn't. Sure, no, I meant it's not that I didn't mean. These are people that like the X-Men. I'm talking about my wife and my sister-in-law. With they watch the X-Men cartoons. My wife has read a few of the X-Men comics. She read Grant
I
Morrison's.
bought her X-Men comics.
Pardon me?
I bought her X-Men comics.
Yeah. Maurice's read Grant Morrison's new X-Men, but it's not like she's not been actively reading them, right? She hasn't read them in a long time. But I was like, you need to read this one. So that I was really invested in what would happen to Moira, and this is probably one of the worst outcomes I could have had. And there's this. The other thing is that I also had high expectations because of how well Hickman's other storylines have ended. So I know this could have been amazing, and it is very likely that it was not amazing. I really doubt that this was his plan. I really doubt that his plan was to have Moira become a villain.
Okay, so basically it's like I kind of feel like in the end it was kind of like it's like I was disappointed, but it's not like a huge. I wouldn't say it's like a huge deal breaker with me in terms of like my ongoing readership with the X-Men. But it's like I imagine like your opinion is just of this is like it's just kind of like going no.
I'm curious about what they're going to do. I mean, like I said, the other writers, from their standpoint, absolutely. Sometimes when I watch, I'll watch a TV show and they'll do something radical in an episode, and I'll go, you know what? It would be so cool if they just kept this. It's going to be reversed at the end of the show, but what if they didn't? And how crazy would that be? And from that perspective, I do respect this idea. So I don't want to say, I agree with you that if I had the time to continue reading X-Men comics, because I basically read these specifically, I was going to read the Hickman ones, I was going to come back when I knew that it was done. But I had not read X-Men comics for a long time before that. So, I still, I agree with you. If you like X-Men comics, continue to read because there's a lot of good stuff coming out.
Like I said, it's not actively awful.
Yes, I mean, the Moira elements make me angry, and so if you take those out, or you just go, oh well, that was too bad and disappointing, you have a bunch of other comics that are going to do some really interesting things in this environment.
Like Marauders.
Like Marauders. Immortal X-Men looks like it has a lot of promise. So we'll see. I have been reading, the other X-Men series, and it has been interesting as well. I did want to say there's one other X-Men series that I saw that I was not aware of. Have you heard of House of XCII?
Oh, the X-Men 92 comic. Basically, it's like what if like House of X, Powers of X have been done in the context of the animated X-Men series.
Yes. Yeah. I just skimmed it because I didn't have time I didn't have time to read the whole thing before this, but I kind of skimmed over it just to see what was different, look to see. And the basic concepts are there, but they made a couple major changes. There was one major change it's mildly amusing. If you don't want me to spoil it, I will not.
Oh, I know. I think I know what you're talking about, because about who takes Moira's role in this.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, because one of your favorite mutants, in fact.
my least favorite, but the way it was done was pretty funny. It really seems out there. I got to be honest. It just seems really out there. Like whoever was writing this was like, oh, would this be really goofy? They did it.
Yeah, but like that X-Men, that the animated X-Men series from the 90s holds a holds a like great sway over like like people's mindsets, including on the mindsets of people who made the new Doctor Strange movie.
Oh no. Okay, I don't want to
You
hear anything more.
you'll
I don't
you
want to
want
hear
you want
anything more.
you want just pay attention to you'll just
Don't
listen.
tell me anything more. We're done with Doctor Strange. Okay.
Okay.
Talk about X-Men.
Okay, but I guess it's like in the end, it's like it's like these whole storylines weren't enough to like, get us to stop reading X-Men. But well, it's like I guess I'll be continuing to write about X-Men for the future. But Rob, it's like I guess we'll be talking to you about this unless it's a very very special um like occasion in the future, right?
Probably, yeah. I'm not going to have a lot of time, and it's not because of this comic. It's not because of these comics. It's just because the time investment has been difficult recently. So we'll see at some point in the far future.
Indeed. And I guess so John, you got any thoughts about this and all?
No, I've been enjoying your conversation. So, for the most part, yep. So, no, I don't really have anything. However, I'm curious as to what you have planned for the next podcast.
Okay, well, it's like next time, it's like because of like the time frame and all, it's like it's going to be another buried treasures of manga, but it won't be at Fanime, but it's likely going to be about ES Eternal Sabbath. It's got its own like X-Men echoes as well, but not anything specific as to what we're talking about here. And again, Rob, thanks for contributing to this, and I look forward to having you talk about something, even if it's not X-Men, it's like in the future from here.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks for having me on. It's been a lot of fun. I always love talking to you about this stuff, and yeah, we'll see maybe sometime in the far distant future.
All right, Rob. So hey, it's been great talking to you. It's like, and well, like I said, in the future, maybe sooner than we think, maybe.
All right.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next time on Comic Picks by the Click.
All right, laters.